All right, we'll call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, February 21, 2019. Present at the front table to my right is Ken Richardson, a voting member.
Good evening.
To my far left, Jessica Vitale, a voting member. Seated next to Jess is Ed Navargi, a voting member. And to my immediate left, Bill Malone, our esteemed solicitor. Before we begin, Kenny, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Please rise and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The United States of America,
to the
republic
which is
stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Kenny. We have two continued cases, two new cases on the agenda this evening. The first continued case Ed?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman, we do have minutes to be approved, and I've looked them over, and they have been distributed. I'd like to make a motion that these minutes for February 7th, 2019 be approved as distributed.
a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the minutes are moved and accepted. First continued case is Z18-17, Dennis and Anne-Marie Friel, owners of 155 Coopertown Road. Mr. Malone.
Yes, I spoke to the applicants prior to the commencement of the hearing. They have requested the survey that was discussed at the last hearing from PennDOT. PennDOT's legal counsel is reviewing it, so they are requesting a continuance, and I recommend having the matter continued to the March 21, 2019 hearing.
All right, that case is continued to our March 21st hearing. The next continued case is Z18-37. I won't read the entire description into the record unless someone here wants me to, but I'll read the parties to the case. Haverford Mr. Storage, LLC, owners of 629 Eagle Road, lot number 2, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2201 00366-00. Mr. D'Amico.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and for the record, we did conduct the site visit tonight at 6 p.m. and no testimony was taken. And now we'll proceed with the case.
Yes, thank you. So I think where we were was that we were done giving testimony of our witnesses, and we've got Mr. Gilmore and Mr. Dennis O'Neill here, our civil engineer, in case there are any further questions, including any questions that the board may have as a result of the site visit.
Ed, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And for whom? Dennis?
It would probably be for Dennis.
Okay? Dennis, come on up.
And Dennis, you were sworn to prior hearing in this matter, correct?
That's correct.
So you're still under oath. Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, on the issue of, there is a basin that is designed by the Army Corps of Engineers that doesn't have an outlet, but it has, I imagine, does it have a design capacity? Because I'm kind of concerned that the back end of this basin is going to be filled in as part of this project.
The basin does have a design capacity for a 25-year storm. Part of our stormwater management program was to verify that we weren't increasing the load to that basin. The area that you're talking about where it appears to be filled in is outside the 25-year storage limit that's in the basin. We have submitted this to the EPA for review, and they're currently reviewing to assure them that there is no capacity reduction of that basin. I might point out, however, though, that as a result of all the stormwater management that's being done, a significant amount of flow was taken away from that basin that used to come off of the site before the first Mr. Storage was built. And that water is detained and released through a storm pipe system in the state highway, which ultimately drains down to the creek. So we're comfortable and confident that we're not taking away any volume from that basin.
Okay, so, yeah, not only the existing fill that I saw there, but I also was looking at the plan, and you have proposed fill that goes in there, so you're going to have that approved by both the township and the EPA. I don't know whether the EPA submitted to the township for approval of their stormwater collection facility, because they are the the EPA, excuse me.
No, but as part of our regime to go through the grading process with the township engineer, we have to have EPA's concurrence in a letter form. So all the grading plans will be submitted to them. I might point out too that we're building some walls back there to limit the extent of our fill going into that area.
Gotcha. The other thing I had from what I looked at tonight was the access road. And we don't have a profile of that road, so describe for me what that road between, that behind the facility, not the access road into your building, but the one that gains access to the rest of track one. Describe how that's going to look in the final stages.
It's going to be paved. It'll be graded. The land where that road is relatively flat back there. It'll continue to maintain its same drainage pattern. We're essentially just going to remove soil to put stone in to build the road, and then return it to the grade that it's at right now.
So you're going to pave the road, and then there's going to be, much of it's going to be a retaining wall. Is it in the same spot as the gravel road is now, or is it relocated?
It's relocated. It's further on to the property. It makes a little turn where we're extending out, but it is probably about 12 to 15 feet further than where the gravel road is now. That's the reason why we're putting it in, is because we're building and filling over top of that existing road.
And the only purpose of that road is to what?
It's to continue to provide access to the owners of the property that we're acquiring. They have access now out to that service road, and they want to continue to maintain access. So it's for their use to maintain their access to the service road.
Okay. Now, track one, can you tell me what the current land use is of the remainder of track one? I think it's Bob and Joe's, looks like now.
Our track one that we're taking the land off of, it has multiple uses on it right now. It's storage. There's a building that's being rehabilitated.
Yeah, this is part of the thing that I was trying to get at, and I'm not really sure. And maybe you can take this into account and give me some more guidance on how you're handling this. But one of the things that you're asking for a variance on is to be able to take part of track one and give it to track two. And I don't know what the uses or the parking requirements or anything for what's currently on the rest of track one or the rest of the property that the owner has.
Well, the uses are exterior, outdoor vehicle storage for the most part. They rent space to various people. There's very few parking spaces associated with the actual building itself, but there are parking spaces around that building that are associated with it. As we take the land, those uses will either be relocated or done away with.
Okay, but that's the dilemma. You're asking us to take away area from track one, and we don't have anything on record here that says that the current uses of track one comply. And matter of fact, we did hear some testimony that the older structure there on site is being renovated now, and we don't know what the future use of that will be. And that's part of track one as well.
Well, any use that would go in there would fall under a land development application, and those parking requirements would have to be dealt with as part of any land development application that happened in there, if that building's use was to be changed or added to. That would fall under land development.
Okay, and track, currently the part don't know what, I see some backhoe and I see some other stuff there, but I don't really know what's being used for now. And you say there's multiple uses of where I thought Bob and Joe's was, it's all fenced off, you couldn't gain access to it. So there may be multiple uses there, so we don't know whether that's currently in compliance.
When I say multiple uses, I mean there are multiple people renting space. It's really a single use. It's storage of vehicles, rental storage of spaces for parking. So that use is throughout the property. I don't know how many tenants there are that rent that space, but I don't think that space changes.
Right, so we have no parking layout for what that is, how many spots are available, how many are allowed to be there. You didn't have to do that when you talked to the township.
We did not, no.
So that's part of my dilemma on how we can justify providing that one variance that we're talking about. The other ones,
But we haven't been through land development either, so at that point in time, we're going to be responsible.
and that may be part of the problem, that we don't know. We don't know exactly what the township is going to require. And they're coming here to say, can we take it apart? I don't know if you can take it apart because we don't have that on record. So there might be, that's just my opinion. Maybe the other board has other opinion. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The other ones where you have steep slope, the steep slope is created for the cap. I don't have a quorum with that. The impervious surface, the cap itself has impervious surface. I don't have a problem with that. The parking, I followed this site for a long time and I've never seen a parking problem there. So that doesn't give me any concern. It's some of these other issues about this whole tract in and of itself. It looks like a hodgepodge of things. It doesn't look like there's safe conditions. I don't know that this access road that we're talking about will have any, it's not a public road.
Not a public road.
So
It's being granted from Mr. Storage to the owners of Track 1.
right. So whether they'll, I mean, some of the other roads, I'm seeing cars that aren't even licensed and titled. They're just parts of cars parked on access roads. And that gives me concerned about the safety of emergency vehicles coming in and out to these facilities. The other concern was the access. We were talking about an emergency road that came into the first building. I don't know how you gain access do you need an emergency access to the rear of your new building?
Well, that access road would certainly suffice for that. The building can be accessed from the service road. You're close enough to the building from the service road that you could access it with fire vehicles as well. Matter of fact, I think to park on the access road, you may be a little close to the building for that fire apparatus to function. But I would point out too that the facility is fully sprinklered, and there's a sprinkler in every unit. The building is certainly made of non-flammable materials. So the design helps lower the fire probability in it.
Okay. Well, that access road, your standards, does the access road have enough room to provide the access that is needed under the code if cars were parked on both sides?
It would not if cars are parked on both sides.
Is there any way that your client can ensure that won't occur?
Yeah, we can not park there.
But I mean, can you have a condition that signs will be placed along that road to accept that condition?
I think the signs would be on the front part. Dennis, why don't you grab the site plan, put it up so we know exactly what Mr. McGargy is looking for.
Storage have any issues in park there, but I believe they need this for access in and out of the vehicle, so they're not going to want to block their access.
Can you move on to the mic?
Okay, but this is part and parcel of the whole problem of taking part of the land away from track one, so I don't know how we resolve this then. Sort of like the front area when we had the Swiss Farms and trying to gain access through Swiss Farms. Now you can't do that because Swiss Farms isn't part of that parcel agreement.
Would it help if it were a fire access easement as well as a driveway easement? I mean, that might resolve your concern. That way it's provided for fire access.
And what would that mean, Dennis? What, in your mind, what does a fire access mean at that point? So they couldn't park cars?
Yes, that would mean they couldn't park cars there, that they would have to provide fire truck access for that
Okay.
use, in addition to their regular access.
That would be an acceptable alternative now that that's on there.
It is an access easement, it's not a parking easement.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that was just part of the things that we seen. I saw out there, there was Cadillac, old Cadillac, some nice old cars that are not even being capable of moving, but they were parts cars that were needing to work, that are filling up the travel lanes, and I would hope to avoid that in the future. That's why, okay. That's all I have.
Chairman, if I might
Yes.
just, I was talking to Gilmore, the owner's representatives here, but this area here that Mr. O'Neill was pointing to, which is the area of the access road that's at the rear of what will be Mr. Storage's property once the closing occurs, will be kept clear, and we're happy to accept a condition that would, where we would provide signage to clarify that, but we have no interest in having anybody park. Our customers are going to be parking in the parking spaces that are immediately adjacent to the site, and there's no need for them to be parking on our property, which we.
I think his concern was emergency vehicle access.
Right, but if
So-
we're not, well, I thought that was what Mr. McGarty was saying, is if people were parked here, that would prevent the emergency vehicle from staging in that area. What we're saying is, we'll make sure there's never anybody there.
With a fire
With signs,
easement or,
no parking, fire
Fire
lane,
lane.
no parking at any time for any reason, whatever would a township standard signage would be, we're happy to correct those.
Yeah, because it's not a public road, so the township wouldn't enforce it. It would be up to the property owner to enforce that. Unless it's a fire access, I guess, not the fire marshal, code office now would enforce that.
And similarly, the owner of the property who's here in this room would want to make sure that that road is clear, because that's how he's gaining access to his property, so all on the same
Good, okay.
page there.
Jessica?
It looks like the new access road you're building on the back is on top of the path.
That is correct.
Can that support the weight of your property?
Yes, it can. It has to do with the construction of the road. There's structural fill placed, stone base for the road, and then the paving. And we have consulted with a structural engineer based on the loading of an 80,000-pound vehicle.
So in response to that question, we do have, and I'm handing up to the board what I've marked as Exhibit A18, a copy of a series of emails on this subject. The request of our client, get a structural engineer prepare some calculations and then submitted those to the EPA. And this email string reads backwards in time. So at the first email is from Josh Barber of the EPA to Lou Gilmore, our client, the developer and the applicant for Mr. Storage. And I'll let you read that, but the The second sentence reads that based on the available information, the roadway should be sufficient to handle occasional emergency vehicle traffic. And the structural engineer was asked to put together loads based on the heaviest township firefighting vehicle. And obviously the conclusion is that it does not exceed the 1,000 square foot per square
1,000
foot.
pounds per square foot.
1,000 pounds per square foot. It's well under, it's 800, I think you said, Dennis?
This is calculated at 700. We did ask them to check it to go to 100,000 pounds, and it came in at about 810 or 815, so we're still well below the 1,000 pounds.
And the last correspondence on this email says the EPA recommends that you employ a third-party inspector during construction. Is that something that you are planning on doing?
It is, and it's something we have to do anyway because we have to verify that the fill is placed properly over the cap.
I know in the previous exhibits you had a kind of tentative 3D rendering of what the building's going to look like from the parking lot side. Have you done any renderings showing perhaps what the view would look like from Eagle Road or Lawrence Road with the new building?
Mark, can you,
Yeah,
since that was,
Mr. Louis Gilmore, who testified at the last hearing, and so he's still under oath.
understood.
No further questions.
Okay,
I'm okay for now. In reference to the Exhibit A18, they're talking about the bearing pressure and let's see that. So my understanding from what I'm reading here is that the length of the road, each spot in that road, in other words, if we have more than one vehicle there, it's where each vehicle is, that this road will support it.
Yes, it's anywhere where a 12-inch by 12-inch square tire
Right.
would be sitting on that road.
Okay.
By the time it got to the cap, it would translate to that loading.
Right, and you're okay with us using this as a condition that these requirements be met?
We are already subject to that condition from the EPA, so
Okay.
we can't exceed the load, and the whole purpose of Exhibit A18 was to confirm that the heaviest fire vehicle would not exceed that load. We don't.
That's all I got.
Dennis, who from the township gave you the weight of the fire truck?
The structural engineer talked to the township. I'm not sure the person that he got that information from.
Did you get that in writing?
I only have what's in Exhibit A18.
So it's addressed to Lou. And it's from Robert E. Chester Associates. Who are they?
They are the structural engineer who did the design of the building and the first parking lot.
And it says that Lou provided the criteria: emergency vehicle, ladder truck weight approximately 80,000 pounds. So maybe Lou can tell us who he spoke with at the township that gave him that information.
I'm not sure Lou is,
Well, it's addressed to Lou from Robert Chester Associates, and it says, regarding your request, the following information and criteria was provided by you. And then it lists emergency vehicle, ladder truck weight approximately 80,000 pounds.
So the Lou Gilmore that's referred to in this series of emails is not Louis Gilmore, who's Lou Gilmore's son. He's our witness. Lou Gilmore was assigned or took on the task after our meeting 2 weeks ago to contact the township and get in communication with the fire marshal to ascertain the maximum, the weight of the heaviest vehicle in the township fire department. He ascertained that information. I don't know exactly to whom he spoke, but he relayed that information then to his structural engineer, Robert Chester, who made the calculations, and then based on that, Mr. Gilmore transmitted those calculations to Joshua Barber at the EPA, which resulted in the final email in the string that's on the first page of A18.
I actually followed that now. So, Dennis, would you explain again how thick or what type of material, what's the break point here? Let's say a fire truck was actually 100,000 pounds.
okay?
Will this access road support it safely?
It will. If the difference between 80,000 and 100,000 is about 20%. If you take the 32,000,
25%.
25, if you take the 32,000, you get to a 40,000 pound point load from the tire. Translate that through the calculation, you end up with about 880 pounds per square foot. If the fire truck is 100,000 pounds, which is still below the 1,000 pounds per square foot that we're allowed.
So what's the break point for the 1,000 pounds it can support in terms of vehicle weight?
It'd be my opinion, it'd be about 110,000 pounds, 115,000 pounds, without going through the calculation, just
Yeah.
trying to average a number.
So is it your opinion that no emergency responders would be put at risk by responding to a fire and the trucks operating over this roadway? And, you know, they carry air packs, all sorts of equipment on the truck. So the truck has a rating, but they carry a lot of different types of equipment, not to mention the actual crew that rides on the truck. So I don't know what the total weight of a responding vehicle might be, but we certainly would never want any of our first responders put at risk. So is it your opinion that that roadway is sufficient to support a truck fully loaded with emergency responders and all their equipment?
It is, the 80,000 pounds is the gross vehicle weight, which includes a load on it. It's not the actual weight of the vehicle itself.
Right, but it supports the truck,
Yes,
cab.
and the road will adequately support that.
Jess, do you have any other questions right now?
No.
Ed?
Just one other question. I seen that the fill that was placed there, was placed on the outside of what I presume was the work done by the EPA, because the aerial photos that I looked at from Google Earth before initial building was built doesn't show the fill extended like it is. So I'm assuming they've done that over time, and it looks rather unsightly. Will your fill activities clean all that up and stabilize it, similar to what you've done on building 1?
Yes.
That it will not be exposed asphalt and exposed dirt?
Well, no.
Thank you, that's all I had.
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess. Dennis, is he still back there? So we would encourage you to take every step possible to ensure that that access road is safe for all emergency vehicles. I think the township may have a piece of firefighting equipment that weighs 95,000 pounds. Okay? And the ladder trucks, they have outriggers that come out from the truck to stabilize it. So it's like posts that support the truck. And with water, you know, millions of gallons potentially being sprayed on a fire, I would like you to consider that that could compromise the base in some way, if it can compromise the base in some way. So even with those items being considered, is it still your opinion that the access road as proposed would withstand the weight of fire trucks?
Yes.
Do you have any other questions, Kenny?
No.
Jessica? Ed?
No, and just to clarify for me, Dennis, when we're talking about, not danger of collapse, it would just be danger of the cap being torn and possibly water getting into it. It's not like, it's not hollow, so there's no cave-in potential. It's more that the cap would be damaged in some way, the exposing
That's correct.
in the future. Okay, thank you.
Do you have anything else, Mark?
No, just to move for admission of exhibits A1 through now A18.
Okay, they are admitted.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify. Anyone present that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this case, and the decision will be rendered at our March 21st hearing. We may try to do a decision this evening. It's unlikely, but in the event we cannot do a decision this evening, it'll be at our March 21st hearing.
Okay. And is that your next hearing, March 21st? Or is that?
I don't think we have anything listed for March 7th.
Okay,
So
right.
the 21st would be our next hearing.
Understood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good night. You're welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Our first new case is Z19-2, John and Cassandra McLaughlin, owners of 313 Brookline Boulevard, Havertown, PA, who seek a variance to construct a deck that will encroach into the rear yard setback by 3 feet, and also not be required to maintain the 10-foot separation from the existing garage to the proposed deck. The property is owned R4 and located in the 7th Ward. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson, members of the zoning board committee. I'd like to thank you for having myself, my wife on the agenda tonight to listen to our zoning variance application. On behalf of my wife, who's not able to attend today or tonight, she's at home with her 4 children, so she's left this up to me. So,
All right, I need to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
John McLaughlin, 313 Brookline Boulevard, Havertown, PA. 190.
All right. John, please tell us a little bit about what you would like to do and why.
We are planning on, or we hope to build a deck on the back of our house. Currently, we don't have any meeting space outside of our house other than the front porch that we have on our Dutch Colonial. You know what a Dutch Colonial looks like. You know, the front porch is fairly small. Currently, we have enough seating for about 4 people comfortably. Anything over that, it gets a little bit cramped. So with our 4 children, with our neighbors, our friends, our family that come over, we just like to have something that we can go outside and enjoy the fresh air. When we moved in almost 14 years ago, our plan was always to build a deck on the back of the house. Through the years and trying to take care of other things that that we need to get done with the house, whether it's new windows or new floors or updating the electrical in there. The deck has always kind of taken a back burner on things. So we're finally to the point where we like to do put a deck onto the back. Obviously, we're running into some zoning issues with how close it gets to the garage, the detached garage in the backyard, and also how close it is to the rear setback. So I know the contractor, when he was mapping out the deck, I know he did take into account how close the garage was, and he doesn't lay out the deck the full length of the back of the house. He does cut it in, and then he also cuts it in the corner. But I think you can see from the diagram, it's still at the closest point is about 5 feet away from the garage itself. But I think in zoning requirements, I think it's more of a linear line going all the way across. So it might be measured in terms of zoning requirements. So I do need, or we were asking for a variance on that part of it with the garage. And I guess on the flip side, I don't know what I could do other than tear down the garage, although I do need it. We store our bicycles and our lawnmower and weed whacker and our furniture, our outdoor furniture we store there in the winter, so there is a need for the garage. So, and I guess the other piece of variance that I'm looking for is also to the rear setback, where I guess I'm required for 25 feet, and I'm required for 25 feet, and I'm asking for 22, so I'm 3 feet short on that. The deck that we're proposing, we think fits in with character of the neighborhood, and also fits in with the other size decks in the neighborhood. I think anything shorter than that kind of compromises what we're trying to do, and the furniture we like to have on our deck. And I don't think we're asking for a monstrosity of the deck. We're just looking for something that kind of fits our needs. I wouldn't say it's a growing family in size, but it's definitely a growing family in age, and they're getting bigger and they're venturing out more. And one of the things that my wife and I like to do is at least to have the kids come back to our house. They hang out. We like to keep them as much as we can surrounded by other parents and not roaming the parks in the police field or the Grange or the football stadium at night. Like, we like to try to keep them in close eye. So as they're getting older, they want to have more friends and family over, or friends over, and that's kind of what the genesis of us wanting to build a deck.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
attached to your application are certain items, including the I guess, sketch plan that you referenced.
Yes.
That's not part of the exhibits yet before the board. If you want the board to consider those, we have to have them marked and admitted into evidence. I do have a copy of it here.
Okay.
Is this the plan that you were referring to?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'd like to go off the record just for a moment and see if we can get these exhibits.
All right, we'll go back on. Okay, so Mr. Malone explained to you that how exhibits are required to be marked, and you have 3 exhibits that you'd like to have marked this evening, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, Bill, would you please walk us through it real quickly?
Sure, so by exhibit number, we'll start with A1. Can you tell the board what exhibit A1 is?
Sure. A1 is the actual design of, well, it's a layout of my property. To kind of walk you through, where it says house, just 20 feet by 50 feet, that's the actual physical presence of my house.
Okay,
The
so,
back-
but generally, this is a plot plan.
Yeah, plot plan, correct, yes.
Okay, before we get to the specifics of it, A2, could you tell the board what A2 is?
Sure.
Impervious surface calculations?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah, sorry.
And what is exhibit A3?
A3. A3 is a letter of support from each of the, my neighbors, continuous neighbors on my property, both to my right and left side on Brookline Boulevard, and also to my neighbor directly in back of me, which I'm seeking relief on their property line.
And I believe on exhibit A1, there is at the top right, it indicates neighbor driveway. Is that one of the neighbors
That's
that
correct.
is in exhibit A3?
Yes, that is the ferries on that side of the property.
Going back to A1, could you give the board a little more idea of how your property is set up and whether you could put a deck in any other area of your property?
I couldn't, I mean, what we want is have our deck off the back of the house. I think it kind of flows more along that way. I don't know if really we could construct a deck anywhere else on the
There's
property.
nowhere else on the property that you could put it and be in conformity with the setback requirements?
No.
That-
Not at all.
How about the topography of your yard? Is it flat, sloped?
It's basically flat. I mean, right now, our backyard, we have, as unsightly as it looks, that's where we put our patio furniture. It's probably, rather have something to put it on, but it's flat. Our kids, there's a lacrosse/soccer return net up there that they go out there and they kick a ball against.
So how would you access the deck from your house? Is there a sliding glass door out of a kitchen or something?
Right now, there's no door going out there. The door will be installed. We have a ceiling to floor window that's pretty big. That's just going to be knocked out, and the door's going to be put in its place.
And you said you have 4 children, correct?
4 girls, yes.
And this would keep them corralled in, basically, easier to keep an eye on?
That's our plan.
Okay. Questions, Ken?
Yeah, don't tell the girls that.
Jessica?
How high off the ground is the finished floor of the deck? Or how many steps up will it be?
I want to say it's probably a little bit less than eye level, about
Okay.
right here,
And
Approximately 5 feet?
5
5
feet.
feet, yeah.
And are you going to be enclosing the sides of the deck with anything, or is it just open
Right
underneath?
now, it's going to be open. Our plan is to enclose it.
Okay.
Cost reasons why I was kind of surprised that it was,
But when you say enclose,
just with,
Just with like a lattice?
yeah, the
is what-
lattice, that blends in with the Trex. I would get Trex because that's the deck material that we're building it, so I would want to put Trex on the side as well, but for now, it's going to be exposed.
And would you be planning on storing anything under the deck in that area?
I have the garage. Garage is sufficient.
And then, so the depth of the deck is 16 feet towards the back of your lot.
Correct.
Did you look at 13-foot deck?
I did. Just in terms of, we laid out a tape measure, we lined it, and then we took our existing furniture and we laid it in the footprint, and we were kind of surprised about how much our furniture took up the space. I mean, we could fit it in there, we could shove it in there, but having that 3 extra feet, I thought, for what we're trying to do, the amount of money we're paying, I thought was worth the appeal.
Okay. And then to the left of the deck, in your 18-foot
Yes.
side yard, is there planting in there
It's
right now?
fully grown in.
Fully grown?
Yes.
Okay. right up to the deck, or is it a couple feet away?
At least 10 feet away from the deck.
No further questions.
Ed?
I didn't catch it, but did you answer the question whether you needed to have any utilities,
There's no utilities going out to the deck.
other than maybe electric for the light?
I think they're going to attach an outlet onto the house.
Okay, so, but no other utilities?
No, not putting any lighting on or anything.
The issue of your house, could you describe it? Because 50 feet seems to be really long. So is it all the original construction, or was there an addition?
There was an addition 2 owners ago. If I were to guess, it was probably built based on the condition that we saw when we found it when we moved in. AstroTurf rug, wood paneling, even they slapped the addition on the side of the house and didn't even take down the existing siding, the wood siding. So I would imagine it was probably built in the 60s or 70s. It wasn't meant for a 4-season. It was probably a 2-season room. There was no heat. There's no no insulation. The windows itself are still the same windows that they installed. They're in poor shape. I mean, they're attic, but I get by with them. But what we did was when we first moved in, they have the Dutch colonials have galley kitchens. We put the kitchen in the back porch, ran electrical and plumbing to the back. So right now, the back of the house, that addition is where our kitchen and our kind of a living area, TV and stuff is back there.
So you remodeled the addition then?
We did, yeah.
And it's up to code with foundation,
Yeah,
everything?
the permits were pulled and everything, yeah.
Okay. The question on the 5-foot separation, do you have any fences in your backyard?
Just to the back, our neighbor has one. He has 2 dogs. So we used to have the fence to keep our kids in the yard, but once they got older and we took the fences down, so there's no fence on either the left side or the right side. The right side being the garage side and the left side being where the mature bushes and trees are.
So there'll be no need for a gate or anything between the deck and the garage?
No, not at all.
All I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kenny?
Yeah, the shared driveway is 16 foot wide,
That's correct, yes.
and do you park in that, or the driveway?
We both do, both neighbors do, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Plenty of room? No problem?
No, not at all.
Okay. And down where the house stops, you have 17 feet to the garage.
That's correct.
And when you were talking about enclosures around the bottom there,
The bottom,
how about the top? Are you
No,
planning to
no.
include it?
not at all.
Or you'd accept
Keep it as
that
that.
as a condition?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have no desire. I'd want to be able to sit outside and enjoy the sunlight.
That's all I have.
Be happy to. Put that as a condition.
Go ahead, Kenny.
That's all.
Right. Anything else, Jess? Ed?
No.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you for having me tonight. Appreciate the time.
And we neglected to tell you that we are normally a 5-member board. There are only 4 voting members here tonight, which leaves you with three choices. Have the 5th member read the transcript that Arlene is keeping and vote based on his reading of the transcript. Request a continuance to a future hearing date when all 5 members are present, or proceed with a 4-member board. The risk of proceeding with a 4-member board is that if the result is a 2-2 tie, your application would fail. So, that having been said, what's your preference?
I'd like to proceed with the current status of the board.
4-member board?
Please, yes.
And with that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify, anyone present that received regular mail, any other residents of Haverford Township. With that, we'll close the hearing on this case, and a decision will be rendered either this evening or at our March 21st hearing.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night. Our next case is Z19-3, Manoa Medical Center Condominium Unit Owners Association, and 1010 Realty LLC, owners of 1010 Westchester Pike, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2209-0271601, who seek variances from the provisions of Section 182-701D1C2 to allow total signage of 55 square feet, Section 182-106B and/or 182-701D1 to allow a 7.5-foot tall monument sign and/or Section 182-701D1A and/or, wow, Don, you really covered it all here, 182-701C1A2B to permit a freestanding sign, the bottom of which is less than 4 feet in height from grade, and any other relief needed for the proposed signage. Property is zoned O1 and located in the 2nd Ward. How are you doing?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Don Petrosi. I'm an attorney representing the applicant. And the applicant is a 6-unit office condominium located at 1010 Westchester Pike in Havertown. It's at the on the south side of Westchester Pike at the intersection with Manila Road. It's in the O1 office zoning district, and it's an odd-shaped piece of property. It's sort of a triangular-shaped piece of property bounded on the west, bounded by Westchester Pike to the north and Manila Road to the south or southeast. It has about 170 feet plus of frontage on Westchester Pike and about 262 feet plus frontage on Manila Road. It's a little less than 3/4 of an acre in size. I think it's 0.73 acres. There's a 3-story commercial office building on the property. Of the 6 condominium units, 2 units are currently vacant and have been vacant for at least the past year and a half. This summer it'll be 2 years. At present, the only signage on the building is the Manoa Medical Center. They're channel letters on the side of the building facing Westchester Pike. They've been there for a very long time. The existing sign is about 22 square feet in size. The wall sign does a decent job of identifying the building. Sometimes people will say, I know where the Manoa Medical Center building is, but it does absolutely nothing to identify individual tenants in the building. And prospective tenants have complained or questioned about the ability to have a sign identifying their individual businesses inside the building. And that's really what brings us here this evening. What is proposed is to add a freestanding monument-type sign at or near the corner of Westchester Pike and Manoa Road in order to provide signage for the individual tenants. The proposed sign is 6 feet wide by 5.5 feet high, or 33 feet. We applied for a permit through the zoning office, and the deputy zoning officer denied the permit for the reason that the total square footage allowed is 30 square feet, and if we put the new sign up of the freestanding sign of 33 square feet and maintain the existing wall sign of 22 square feet, we would have a total of 55 square feet. The issue with the existing wall signage is that it's been on the building a very long time, and we truly believe that if the channel letters are removed, we're still going to have the outline of the letters, and we think it will look significantly worse than if the letters remain up there. It's a fairly innocuous sign. We have some images to show you of what it currently looks like. Right across Westchester Pike is C3 zoning, so this is an area where there's kind of a mix of O1 and C3. If we were a corner property in the C3 zoning district, we would be able to have 70 square feet of signage. If you take the 6 condo units, plus there's a property management panel at the bottom where somebody could call if there was a problem with the property. You're talking about dividing that 33 square feet up into 7, so you're talking about 4.71 square feet per sign or per tenant. Even if you take the total 55 square feet of signage, including what's on the wall, you'd be talking about 7.8 square feet of signage. So we're talking really about a small amount of signage. Our problem is that we've got, well, we wish we had 6 tenants. We have capacity for 6 tenants, and we're trying to fill the building with 6 tenants. There is one other issue, and I made it more complex as the chairman read it than it needed to be. We're sort of in between a monument sign and a freestanding sign under the township's ordinance. The monument sign is not supposed to be taller than 4 feet in height. We're 7.5 feet in height. We could have a freestanding sign that can go up to 16 feet in height. We don't need 16 feet in height, but we could go up to 16 feet in height, but the bottom of the sign must be at least 4 feet above the ground. And since we're proposing a base, we don't have that 4 feet be below the ground. So I threw in the sections. If we're a monument sign, we need a variance to permit the height to be 7.5 feet instead of 4 feet. If we're a freestanding sign, we need a variance from having that first 4 feet essentially open, or the bottom of the sign at 4 feet. I think Joan advertised it as if it's a variance for, because it looks like a monument type sign. It's got a base on it. Having a monument sign with a height of 7.5 feet instead of 4 feet. We'll show you through the exhibits. I've got a number of exhibits to hand up to you that go through very quickly, that visibility is not an issue. The only basis I can think of for that kind of a prohibition is that you want to not interfere with visibility of vehicles, that particularly at an intersection or where there's a curb cut going on to a road. And that's not really an issue or a problem here, as you'll see in the exhibits that I hand up. If you're heading east on Westchester Pike and you want to make a right turn to head down Manoa Road, you're not really in the real intersection of Manoa Road and Westchester Pike. There's a little cut through that goes to the right. It's one way because it's separated from the rest of the roadway by I've called it a traffic signal island. There's a big island that has a traffic signal on it. It's got a yield sign on it. It has a utility pole on it that we can show. So you're on this separate little one-way cutoff that takes you to Manoa Road, and you've got a yield sign, which is the effect of a stop sign, and there's a crosswalk there. So any vehicles turning right on Manoa Road are going to be so far past where this sign would be as the blocking visibility, just would not be an issue. We think that the monument sign looks better than having a pole sign, having it mounted on poles and having it anywhere. It would have to be a minimum of, I think, 9.5 feet tall, and it could be as high as 16 feet tall. So we think that 7.5 foot tall monument sign, it's a 2 foot base with a 5 foot 6 inch sign on top of it. And that's basically what the case is all about. The ordinance requires the signs to be set back 10 feet from the right of way, and we're showing it on the plans that I'll hand up, 10 feet. We're probably going to slide it a little further back, maybe even 15 feet from the right of way, and a little further to the west from where it's depicted on the plans. With me this evening, I'm going to call some witnesses to confirm some of what I've indicated tonight and give you just a little more detail. But Joe Foreman is here, and Joe is the president of the Condominium Association. We were here before you a couple years ago on a variance to put in some additional parking spaces. When Joe Foreman and his partner Brian Zubach, who is also here, have put some money into the property, tried to fix the property up. It looks a lot better than it did when they took it, and they put some additional parking in, and they've really tried to fix the property up. But despite their best efforts, and we have, in addition to Brian and Joe, we have a representative of the sign company here, Ginny Berger, who will describe the signs for you. And we also have Steve DiBattista, who is a commercial real estate agent with Zamek McMahon, who will tell you a little bit more about efforts to find a tenant and about what some of these tenants have said about a need to have some kind of signage to identify their individual businesses. So with that, I'm going to hand up personnel lists and exhibit packets that are with the exhibits pre-marked to the board members. Some of them are just photographs to show you what the area looks like, what the other signage in the area looks like. And I may actually, when we get to this sign witnesses testimony, hand up some additional photographs that I just got today and didn't have time to incorporate into my exhibit packets, but just to show you some of the other signs that are in the area. So, unless the board
And
has...
Don,
Yes.
just, not to interrupt you, but before we get too much further, you heard me just describe to the prior applicant.
Yes.
And you know I have to do it for the record. We are normally a 5-member board. We have only 4 voting members present this evening. And that leaves your client with 3 choices. Proceed with a 4-member board, risk being a 2-2 tie would cause the application to fail, request a continuance to a future hearing date, or request that the absent member read the transcript and vote based on his reading of the transcript. So that being said, if you want to discuss it with your client, that's fine.
Go
Otherwise,
ahead this evening with 4 members.
you can take a minute. That's okay.
What's that? Okay. I think Brian's expressing a preference for having 5 vote. Could we put the testimony on, allow the 5th member to read the transcript and
Absolutely.
vote in a subsequent?
That's why it was one of your choices.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let me hand up the exhibit packets and just run through the exhibits real quickly and then call the witnesses.
Okay.
There's also personnel lists in here that have...
Thanks, Tom. Thank you. And Don, just so you and your client know, as you put on your testimony, a concern of the board may be the fact that Manoa School is, what direction would that be, Billy? South? South on Manoa Road from this location. And children could be crossing Westchester Pike or Manoa Road. And the sight lines from traffic turning onto or off of Manoa Road is an important subject for us. So,
Yeah, I think when you see the aerials, you'll see that we're really nowhere near the real intersection of those 2 roads where we're talking about.
I haven't looked at the exhibits yet. I just
Okay. Just to run through these real quickly, just to at least to identify them. The first is an excerpt of the Declaration of Condominium that shows that it is a condominium that was formed in 1984. We have provided a full copy. I just gave you excerpts because the actual declaration is many pages that you probably don't need to see. But I have provided the township with a full copy in the previous application. I have another copy for Joan that I can give to her. A2 is a sign exhibit plan that was prepared by Lynn Architects. Bob Lynn's office and Adam Powell in Bob's office, engineer, had done a plan previously. We had them locate the sign. It says proposed sign, 6 feet length by 7.5 feet high. That includes the base. It shows you generally where it would be. He has it set back about 10 feet from the right-of-way. We'll probably, as I said, set it back a little bit further than that. And the next exhibit is one I was referring to, which is Exhibit A3. And that's the aerial. And you can see, here's what I call the traffic signal island that is right in here. And this is the little cut-through. So the actual intersection of Westchester Pike and Manoa Road is way up here. And we're, a considerable distance from that. And this is one way, obviously. You couldn't go left on there, you'd be going the wrong way on Westchester Pike. It's one way to go down Manoa Road. And the sign's going to be way back here. It's not marked on this exhibit, but it's on the plan. And there's no way that could interfere with the sight lines at that location.
okay, but one of the exhibits will have the specific distance, but the sign would rest from Manoa Road, right?
Yes, this Exhibit A2 shows where the sign is. He didn't, it's hard to say where Manoa Road begins and where Westchester Pike ends because we've got this little curved area here. He took the center of the right-of-way line, but the scale on this is 1 inch equals 10 feet. And I have a scale if anybody wants to see what any distances are, but it's a considerable distance. You can see right here, Bob, that this is 25 feet from the center line here to this line here. This is 25 feet, and this is 25 feet, and the sign is up beyond that. And we don't get to residential properties on Manoa Road. We have 260-some feet of frontage on Manoa Road, so the residential properties don't start until more than 250 feet away from where the sign would be, more than, in excess of 250 feet away. Exhibit A4 shows the existing wall sign that I referred to, the Manoa Medical Center. It actually has the dimensions of the sign on A4, so they're a little hard to read, but it is 22 square feet. We've gone over that with the township. I also have I think they probably have a large copy and a small copy of Exhibit A2, but the large copy is to scale. A5 are the sign drawings that the sign representative will review with you, and what they did is they put an option 1 and an option 2. The sign is exactly the same size. It's not really accurately located on the sign drawings. They're just trying to give you a representation of what it would look like, but it would be further to the west, and it would be a little further from Westchester Pike. But the two options, option 1 has where it says apps, that's not what it will actually say, but that would be the manager and the telephone number to reach the manager in case there's an issue with the property. This one shows 5 sign panels, 1 larger one and 4 smaller ones. And the second, option 2, shows instead of 5 panels above the management panel, it shows 6 panels. The reason for that is there's 6 condominium units, but right now, Crozier-Chester Medical Center occupies 2 of the units, 2 condominium units. So unfortunately, they're leaving. They're having new space built, and we know they're going to leave, so we're going to have 2 more vacancies in the near future. If we wind up with someone that takes all the space that Crozier had, then we would have the 5 panels. If we have 6 individual units, we would have the 6 panels. And the sign detail is shown on the next 2 pages for both option 1 and option 2. The rest of the photographs, I won't go through them now, but are mostly a series of other signs in the area. A9 and A10 shows the property, shows the for lease sign that's currently on the property that we've been trying to lease the property. A11 is a better picture of that triangular piece where the utility pole, traffic signal, and yield sign are located. And this is the little cut through that I was talking about. That's depicted, you can see in the aerial. And for what it's worth, Exhibit A12 is just the zoning map. I wish I had it in a larger scale for you, but it was just emailed to me, and 11 by 17 was the largest I could print it at. But it's got leaders, and it identifies the surrounding uses, the nearby uses. So it shows our property, it says APPS, APPS. Then it shows Long and Foster to the west on Westchester Pike. Then Wells Fargo Bank, then Speedway Gas, then Keystone Veterinary, then Broomall Pediatric, then some housing, I don't know exactly what that is, then a McDonald's, then L&M, and then Starbucks. So it just shows going up Westchester Pike to the west. And you can see that the red colors are the O1 zoning, and the sort of orange color is the C3 zoning. But it just shows where those are. And we have some of the photographs, some photographs of some of the signage that those places have. That's included partially in the packets and partially what we will do. So with that, unless there are any questions of me, I'd call on Joe Foreman to give a little bit of testimony.
Good evening. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yep.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear this evening for the board, please.
Joe Foreman, F-O-R-M-A-N.
May I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
And in what capacity do you appear tonight, Joe?
I am the owner of the building, along with my partner, Brian. Zubac.
Joe, you're actually president of the board that manages the condominium, and now you and your partner through 1010 Realty LLC, a limited liability company of which you're a member, own the 6 units. When we were here last time, I think you only owned 4 of the units?
We owned 4 of them at the time, yes.
Okay, and you've since purchased the other 2 units?
Correct.
You okay to proceed?
Yes,
sir.
go ahead.
I've already indicated you agree that the condominium has 6 condominium units?
Yes.
Okay. And I mentioned the vacancies. Tell the board, are there currently some vacancies in the building?
There are 2 vacancies that were there from the very beginning when we purchased the building, and now with Crozier going on a month-to-month right now until their space is finished, we will have 4
Vacancies.
vacancies.
And you first purchased any of the units in mid-2017, like around July of 2017?
That's
or so?
correct.
Okay. And have you tried to lease the 2 vacant units that have been vacant the whole time?
Yes,
And for how long have you tried to lease them since?
since the very beginning.
Okay. And have you used a real estate agent to try to lease them?
We have
And who was that?
Zomick McMahon.
And have you had a number of prospective tenants look at the units?
Absolutely.
And we'll have Steve testify as to exactly what they said, but did any of the tenants who did not rent indicate a concern about not having signage?
There was at least 3 people that came through that was a major issue for them.
They wanted to have some individual signage to identify the name of their business.
Exactly.
And do you believe, as the sort of the landlord here in a way, that signage is important to prospective tenants?
Absolutely.
You and your partner, Brian, manage the condominium?
We do.
And do you propose to have a name and telephone number where someone could reach you, be it one of the, well, the tenants will know where to reach you, but it could be a prospective tenant if there's a vacancy, or it could be someone that notices a problem with the property, with the grounds or the parking lot or something like that? Would you have your name and phone number on there so they could reach you?
Yes, that was one of the reasons why we asked them to have it there.
Okay, so that's the bottom sign panel?
Exactly.
And I did mention the 2 options that were shown. Was the reason for showing the 2 different options basically because right now you really have one tenant who is taking 2 spaces, and therefore you only need 5 panels?
Correct.
But in the future, the likelihood is that if you ever are able to lease the place up fully, you will have 6 tenants?
It's 6 units. We should always plan to have 6 panels.
Okay. Now, the board's probably familiar with the area, but just to give a little bit of orientation, across Westchester Pike, on the north side of Westchester Pike, there's a CVS.
CVS, there's a bar,
Westgate Pub, I think.
Westgate Pub, and
Manoa Beverage, a little further to
yes,
the west.
yeah,
And there were some other commercial uses, smaller commercial uses.
yeah.
And obviously, they all have some signage.
They all have signage.
Signage,
Yeah.
And what is to the west of the subject property on Westchester Pike? So on your side of Westchester Pike, what's immediately to your west?
Well, we have Long and Foster and Wells Fargo.
So the first use would be Long and Foster Real Estate, and the next use would be Wells Fargo Bank?
Correct.
And across Manoa Road from the subject property, is that a parking lot for Lanark Country Club?
Lanark Country Club.
Now, there are some residential properties about 250, 260 feet heading down in a south, I guess, sort of southeast direction on Manoa Road. That's a residential area?
There is residential, but it's separated by high tree, shrub, high trees.
Can you tell the board just a little bit about, what you're trying to do with the property and what you and your partner have already done to try to improve this property and make it a contributing part of the Haverford Township community?
Absolutely. As you know,
some of you were here when we did the variance for the parking. So that was our number one thing that we needed to do and to improve the property. We were able to do that. We've put new carpeting into the building. We've done the roof. We've done landscaping. We've really tried to be good neighbors to try to get the property. And we've even spoken to our neighbors to make sure that we were doing things the right way.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
I think that covers it.
Okay. The board might have some questions for you.
I do. With respect to the sign, are you requesting that it be illuminated? If so, from within, exterior? It is within. And what would the hours be that the sign might be lit? 24 hours? Well, we have the lighting already shining on the building on a timer. I think it goes off, goes on sunset, sunrise, sunset. I think that's how we have it, and it lights the building. And it's also lighting up the Manila Medical sign area.
It's interesting because I believe the ordinance actually says that for certain uses, you can have lights on 24 hours, and it's like a dentist, a doctor, some types of medical uses. And for other uses, it's supposed to be dusk to midnight, I think, is what the ordinance says. And we would comply with,
I asked what his intent would be. Well, my intent is to have it so that people during the day that are using the business can be able to identify who's in the building. At nighttime, it's not really necessary for somebody to know who's in the building. The only thing that would be the phone number on the bottom, should there be a problem. If this application were approved, would you accept a condition that the lights be turned off at some reasonable time, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever that time is? And the lettering on the panels, is that fixed or is it digital, what you're proposing? It's fixed, right?
yeah, it's fixed. They're internally illuminated, but they're fixed. It's not an electronic
Not
message
digital.
board or anything like that.
No electronic messaging? No advertising, no lights going around. I may have additional questions, but I always like to ask my questions last. Kenny? Good questions?
Yeah, when you, being a good neighbor, you spoke to your neighbor,
I did.
and what did they have to say?
Well, I spoke to my neighbor about the parking, because that was immediately next to her. I don't know Hannah's last name, but I let her know what I was planning on doing. And if she had any objections, I just showed her what we were doing, and she was fine with it.
As far as the sign goes?
Not with the sign, I said with the parking that we did, but I did not speak to her. I think we're far enough away from that area, and as we mentioned, it's with the shrubs. I don't think that she can even see it.
And that's all I got.
That's good.
Most of my questions will be for the next people.
Okay, Ed?
Yeah, and the question comes up, who were the two uses that, other than Crozier in there? Are they medical?
Medical.
What would happen if you don't have to restrict it to medical? So you would still leave the sign up on the building?
That's a great question. And medical is what it's always been since Dr. Jacobs, who was the original owner, built it, had it that way. But 01 in the individual units could be they could have multiple uses. But I think people identify the building as Manila Medical.
Yeah, so you can still keep that up in the future. I just wondered whether that would, all of a sudden, we give you approval, you get different tenants, and you want to take the medical building down, so.
I think the issue with the Manila Medical portion on it is more of, I think you're still going to see the lettering.
Right.
Just because it's been there for so long. But that's what identifies the building. We're not trying to advertise anything on the building as far as
any particular tenant in there. It's just the name of the building.
Okay. The issue of the size of the sign, how was that arrived at?
I'm sorry?
The size of the sign?
Yep.
Who told you that you needed to be that that particular size?
Honestly, I left it to the people, the sign people, to let me know what was allowed. And I also spoke with Joan in the codes office.
Well, so you found out it wasn't allowed, but you wanted to continue it. So I'm just wondering if it's the minimum size that is acceptable.
Yeah, I am going to ask those questions, and I'm sure you will too, of the sign witness.
Okay.
We think, at least we think it is, I think it is, we'll see what she has to say, because of the fact that we've got 6 tenants, and, you know, when you break up a 33 square foot sign into a management panel and then 6 sign panels for tenants, you wind up with pretty small panels, and she can maybe tell us what size letter could fit on those. Part of that's going to depend on who the tenant is, whether they have a short name or a long name or those kinds of things. So that's why we couldn't, we talked about whether on the drawings we should show you what the lettering would look like, but we didn't know who the tenants were going to be. So it was difficult to put names in there. We talked about putting tenant number 1 or tenant, just so you could see what the letters would look like, but maybe she can give us some idea. I mean, the panels are 14 inches high, so that's how high the panels are, and they're about 2 feet 9 inches in width. So it doesn't really allow a lot of room for very much to go in there. With a 14 inches to work with, I think the absolute biggest you could put there would be a 12-inch letter, and you wouldn't even have that. It'd probably be a 9-inch letter or something, but I'll leave that to the sign witness.
Okay, we'll talk to the sign. The other question I have is that since you're on the corner, you're allowed to have signage on both street fronts. This one, I mean, you can stretch it and say that this one is almost on Manoa. So would you accept the condition that you would not put a signage on Manoa in the future?
We would not put a sign on Manila.
Just the one freestanding sign.
That's all I have.
Any other questions, Kenny? All right.
Okay, thank you. I might as well call Steve DiBattista, the real estate agent, because it's related to what Joe just testified, and then we'll have the sign witness.
Steve, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear this evening for the board, please?
My name is Steve DiBattista. I'm with Zamek McMahon Commercial Real Estate. We represent the owners of the building.
Go ahead, Don.
Yes, Steve, have you and your firm tried to lease the vacant spaces for the owners of the property?
Many times.
Okay. And have you been doing that almost since they first took ownership?
Yes. Late summer of 2017.
And can you just tell the board about any concerns expressed by any tenants or any questions that were raised about signage or, why you've had some difficulty trying to lease it?
Okay, sure. I've brought many prospective tenants to the building. I would say maybe 15 to 20 of them. And I would say that maybe a third to half of them inquired about exterior signage, to the point where I actually approached the owners and asked them if that would ever be feasible. 2 in particular told me that it was an absolute deal breaker. Predominantly medical uses, and their practice name was very important to them. They wanted to be visible on the outside of the building to people at the bus stop, people in cars sitting at the traffic light there, and they just said it's a deal breaker. So whenever we would come across any kind of deficiencies, we would always bring it to the attention of the ownership to try to rectify whatever situations we could, because we're brought in to bring in tenants, and we haven't been able to do so.
In your experience, speaking more generally, rather than specifically, in commercial real estate, is that frequently an important concern of tenants, that they have some identification of the business on the outside of the building?
Absolutely, and there usually is in most instances.
That's all I have for you.
Questions, Kenny?
No.
Ed?
No questions.
Jessica?
Besides the complaint about lack of signage, was there any other feedback you received from the prospective tenants about the building that caused them not to choose to rent there?
Lack of parking, which the owners addressed as best they could. You could never have enough. The previous owners used to have an agreement with the CVS across the street for parking, so that's always an issue. But I would say between signage and parking, they were the major issues.
That was I don't remember exactly the year, but we were in a few years ago. We did put additional parking in to try to address that concern.
Did the prospective tenants ever express issue with just the configuration of the space or the amount of square footage available?
Oh, there were some, of course. Yeah, there were some that needed more square footage or needed less square footage or more per floor. So yeah, there absolutely were other reasons, sure.
No further questions.
Go ahead, Tom.
Great, thank you. Next witness is Ginny Berger.
So, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear before the board this evening,
My
please?
name is Virginia Berger. I work with Compass Sign Company at 1505 Ford Road, Bensalem, PA, 19020.
Now, Ginny, did Compass Sign Company prepare the sign drawings dated October 26, 2018, which are part of the exhibit packet that we handed up to the board this evening?
Yes, they did.
It's 16,
I think that's exhibit A5?
October 16.
Date 10/16.
Yes. Oh, 10/16, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
And those drawings show the two options that both I and Joe Foreman have described.
Correct.
Would you please describe what each of the 4 pages in Exhibit A5 shows, and just describe what the sign would be like?
We have a monument sign that's approximately 5 foot 6 inches by 6 feet with 7 panels. 6 for the tenants and 1 for the owner to advertise that it's his company with his number. It is internally illuminated, which with LEDs, so they can be toned down. It will not be the bright sign. It's acrylic and an aluminum sign, and lettering height would not be 12 inches. The lettering height would be about 3.5 inches high. Be about 3.5 inches high. Would be 2 lines of lettering for each panel.
Then there'd be a space between the 2
Correct.
lines as well?
Yes.
Okay. And you'd have a little bit of a border above and beyond,
Correct.
below. Why don't you, that was, what you described was the 6-panel, which was option 1, and option 2 is, option 2 is the 6-panel above the management panel, and option 1 was the 5
Correct.
panel. Okay. Let's go to sheet 3, and,
Sheet 3 is showing you the same as the first page, which is showing you the 5 tenant panels and the management panel. If you would look into the left-hand corner, you can see the existing sign that is telling you it's available. Our sign would be behind that sign,
you mean closer to the building? when you-
closer to the building. Behind the existing available sign, it would be at that edge, going back towards the building.
And would it be a little bit further to the west on Westchester Pike than depicted, than the current
It's
sign?
closer to about 40 feet from that corner.
40 feet from the corner?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And would you, on sheet 3, which happens to be the 5-panel option, can you indicate the size of the individual panels?
Well, the individual panels, the first one would be 14 inches by 5 feet 8 inches.
That's the larger
That's the
panel.
largest. It's actually 6.4 square feet. The bottom ones, which are 14 inches by 33, is 3.3 square feet each.
Now, and sheet 4 is just the same detail with essentially the same size of
The
the
extra
panels
panel, extra
for
panel.
option 2, correct?
Correct.
Now, in your opinion, is that about as small as the panels should be so that they would be readily readable from Westchester Pike?
Yes, it is. If it was any smaller, they would be too small to be visible.
Okay. And would the proposed sign interfere with visibility of drivers traveling on the adjacent roadways?
No way.
Can you please explain why?
Well, when you're coming down, going east on Westchester Pike, the light that's there happens to be, I'd say, an extra 25 feet away from this corner. So when we're coming up, you're on the cartway, and you could be making that right-hand turn. There is no sight triangle issue whatsoever. I went past it, I went from both directions. It's totally out of the view.
There's a crosswalk across Manoa, and vehicles stopping at that crosswalk. How far away from them and behind them would the sign be?
From the walkway, I'm telling you, it's close to about 40, 45 feet.
Okay. And so that sign's not going to interfere with visibility at all?
No, no.
And anybody that would be turning left onto Westchester Pike from Manoa Road to head in a westerly direction, have to drive across 2 lanes of traffic, the middle island,
They
to make
probably
a turn?
would, it's way out of their way. I
Okay.
mean, you're closer to the building. There's an area right around where the flowering area is, and that's close to where the sign will be. I mean, where it is right now, it's just showing you the picture of it, but it's not that close to the corner.
Now, are you familiar with the existing channel letters on the building wall facing Westchester Pike that say Manoa Medical Center?
Yes, they're flat cutout letters. They're
And-
10.5 inches high.
Okay, and those are not internally illuminated,
No, they're
are
not.
they? And those letters are 10.5 inches. What's the square footage of that sign? I think there was earlier
22
testimony.
square feet.
22 square feet, okay. And we did include some of the other signage in the area. First, in the exhibit packet itself, and then we'll get to these. Just take a look at some of the photos and identify, for example, what is Exhibit A6?
A6 is your Long and Foster sign, which happens to be 49 inches by 61 inches. It comes to about 24 square feet. And it's 16 feet high. But they also have 2 other signs, or 3 other signs on their building. One over their entranceway that's approximately 12 square feet, and 2 on the corner on the other side, which comes to, I'd say, one looks like about 8, and the other is about 15.
And that's in the same zoning district, that's in the O1
Yes,
zoning
it is.
district? Okay. And what about Exhibit A7, which is the CVS across the street, which, in fairness, is in the C3 zoning district?
Well, they have an existing freestanding sign that's close to the building, which is approximately 3 by 3, and the letters are approximately 2.5 feet high, plus the length.
What about the wall sign?
The letters on the building are about 2.5 feet high, plus the length of about 14 feet, 15.
2.5 feet high, as opposed
Yes.
to, you're talking letters that are, what, 3 inches high?
Correct.
Okay. And this is Manoa Beverage Company, which is also on the north side of Westchester Pike, a little to the west of the CVS. They have wall signage too?
They have wall signs, they have building signs. Guesstimating, I'm going to be nice and say it's about a 4 by 20 foot sign.
And Exhibit A9 just shows the sign indicating this property is available.
Correct.
You've already addressed that.
That's-
And Exhibit A10 is another picture of that.
Yes.
Exhibit A11 shows that triangular area where the traffic signals are located?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that, other than the Exhibit A12, is the zoning map that shows the location of some of those other businesses. Is that
Correct.
correct? Now, with the board's permission, as I mentioned, I did not have this previously, so this would be Exhibit A13. We'll just mark the packet A13, and I'll have her quickly run through what some of these photographs show. And I do have copies for the board members. Just taking a look at A13, the pages are not individually marked, but we can see what they are. The first sheet, photograph in A13 is the Wells Fargo freestanding sign.
Correct, that's the Wells Fargo, it's,
Okay, you've already talked about that.
then you,
What's the next one?
Broomall Pediatrics, Dentistry and Orthopedics.
And that's they have sort of a almost a
Little
monument
monument
type
sign and
Yeah.
wall sign.
And some wall signage.
Correct.
What's the next one?
Keystone Veterinarian, Emergency and Referrals, they have a wall sign and a little monument.
And
And the last page, the next page was Long and Foster, you're seeing the monument, the pylon sign, the wall sign over the entrance, and there's two signs on the side of the building.
then next is McDonald's.
McDonald's.
Obviously, they've got a
That's way
bunch of
over.
signage. Okay.
And Speedway, they have.
Speedway,
the
which
letters.
is just, it's the first property to the west of the Wells Fargo Bank, isn't it? And
I believe it is.
And it appears from the zoning map, I don't know exactly how, but it looks to me like that's in the O1. I think the McDonald's is in the C3, but the Speedway obviously has significant signage.
Correct, they do. They have them on 3 elevations plus the monument, or the pylon.
Is there anything else that you wanted to address?
Can't think of it at the moment.
Board have questions for this witness?
I got one.
Yes. Ken?
Is there any way we can be more definitive as to where it's gonna be? It's like, it might be there, it might be a little bit further there, a little.
It's going to be exactly where it's depicted on the plan, except 5 feet
Back further.
closer towards the building, away from Westchester Pike. Is that, Jimmy, is that right?
Correct.
Unless we hit, some utility or something that we don't know that's there, that has to be moved a couple of feet or something like that.
Do you have the large plan that would help you a lot better?
Yeah, I got-
So Don, you're referencing Exhibit A2,
Yes.
and on Exhibit A2, it shows the anticipated location of the sign.
Yes.
Correct.
And the testimony is that that is accurate, except that it would be pulled 5 feet back further from the right-of-way.
Correct.
Correct.
Thanks.
And you can see, the 10-foot setback that's shown, just go another half that, and that's where you'd be. Beginning of it.
Just as a reference, how far back would you say the Zamek sign is right now? From the right of way?
Islamic sign.
Oh, God, it's not back at all. It's right on it's by the curb, or by the sidewalk. It's not, it's in the right of way. Totally.
And you're referencing Exhibits A9 and A10?
A5,
A9,
okay, right. Yes, that's within the right of way.
So those don't show, the
That's not
the Zamek sign is not where you're proposing to put this sign?
Oh, absolutely not. No. There, if you look, there's a little bit of a walkway. This walkway here that has an indent is going to be back there behind that portion of that sidewalk.
And you're
15
referencing
feet.
Exhibit A9?
A9, correct.
and if you look on A2, you can see the sidewalk.
And from that point, it'll be 15 feet.
In this area where the 25 is indicated on Exhibit A2, that's not the cut-through. The cut-through is obviously out beyond the sidewalk. That's just to show distances. There was another sign corner setback that we were required to comply with.
Any other questions, Ken?
No,
Jessica?
What is the square footage of the for lease sign, do you know?
Which one?
Of the sign that's the for
It's
lease sign?
24 square feet,
24. And how high off the ground is it?
8.
8 feet. Is there a reason that the sign that you're proposing needs to be less than 4 feet off the ground?
For visibility purposes, if it was any lower, it wouldn't work.
Well, I mean, so the zoning code for a freestanding sign says it has to be at least 4 feet off the ground. And what you're showing is 2 feet right now, so would raising it higher,
Actually, I think that the sign is actually on the ground because there's a 2-foot base the sign area sits on. And I don't know, let me ask Ginny if I can. A 4-foot-high monument sign is an almost unheard of monument sign, isn't it?
Right, that's making it almost a pole sign. I mean,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to have cladding 4 feet high. That would be a
The
problem.
ordinance says that the maximum height
Is
of
4.
a monument sign is 4 feet.
Correct.
It's the freestanding sign.
Right, if it's a freestanding
Not a
sign.
monument that has to have that 4-foot, clearance. And the only thing I can think of is for visibility, sight distance, which we honestly don't believe is any issue here at all.
for the 6th panel, or the 7th panel for the management company, right now that's being shown as the same height as the rest of the panels.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that you know about the text that's going to be in that area.
Not yet, I do not.
Oh, can you help us there with, for
The text for
management
the
company? Do you know what exactly what you're gonna have there?
But 1010 Realty and then our phone number.
No, in this panel, in our panel.
In the
Correct.
panel,
Yeah, but that's what he wants to put there, 1010 Realty LLC and the telephone number.
And the telephone,
Well,
yeah.
it will look just like that.
No, that says.
That's the name of
not-
our company, that's not
what
gonna
it's
be there.
say.
One at a time, please. Otherwise I get in trouble. Apps is the name of our company, that was just done for, for artwork. 1010 will be on there with the phone number, probably my cell number.
And would there be any detriment to reading that information if that portion of the sign was shorter? So what I'm getting at, if that was all on one line, to decrease the height of the sign and thus decrease the square footage.
So there won't be a name there?
There will be a name there. The name will be 1010 Realty LLC.
So
and
the
then there'll be a
1010 on this won't be on the cladding.
No. Don, he may call you as a witness, and then you'll be sworn, and then you can testify.
Then do it.
Brian, right? So, yes, you can speak, but
I don't think this witness, Ginny, actually knows what that will say, and at the appropriate time, I would like to call Brian, who's one of the partners, to maybe he can help us with exactly what that would say. Brian, are you?
I think what Jessica's getting at is, do you need the full height
Right.
to convey 1010 and a phone number? If the answer is no, then the sign could conceivably be a little,
It won't just say 1010, it'll say 1010 Realty LLC, and then 1010.
So it'll be double lines. It would need that space if it was a double line.
And the text is currently 3.5 inches, that's the plan.
3.5, maybe 4.
Would visibility be an issue if that decreases to 3 inches?
It decreased?
Yes.
I believe it would, yes. Yes, it would. It would need to have at least close to as 4 they can get.
Thank you. No further questions.
I don't understand why they have to identify the name of the owner with a phone number at all, but I'll ask that question when it gets to me. Ed, questions?
The question is on A9, the available sign. If you're going to put your sign in there too, can that be relocated somewhere into a better location?
Absolutely.
Okay. But evidently it's not doing a lot of good right where it is, so.
It hasn't worked very well so far.
So if we could probably move it to the other side of the property somehow, or somewhere where it would be visible, that would be helpful. The other thing I'm kind of concerned is, let me move up here so you can, the microphone, is the idea that this intersection isn't a typical intersection with this ramp that comes down through there, and where they have the curb cuts for the handicap access. So it's quite a distance away from the travel lanes of Westchester Pike. So, and without knowing exactly how that sign impacts, would it, because the people are back further down on that ramp, would this sign block people as coming into that lane to make that turn onto Manoa Road?
No,
So,
it would not.
and you base that on,
The distance that we're gonna have it is gonna be back further than where it is right, what you're seeing. That's not where the sign's going. That available sign is definitely
oh,
not.
sure, I understand that, but it's that turn lane, the crosswalk is more than 10 feet away from the Westchester Pike.
Oh, way more,
Oh.
way more. This crosswalk.
Yeah, that's a good 10, 12, absolutely.
So you're coming
I'd
to,
say you're about 16 feet away from it.
okay, so you're coming down Westchester Pike, now your sign would be covering up the crosswalk, I'm thinking. That's
No,
what-
the sign would not be in the way. I'm telling you, the sign is gonna be back behind that crosswalk. Because you have to take it back 10 feet. Right now, that sign's in the right of way. Where that end pole would be behind that. And we're still not in the correct setback. We're
Okay,
bringing it forward and putting it back about 15 feet. So it's,
follow me with this line. You're coming down Westchester Pike, you're doing 50,
Traveling which direction? East?
going east.
going down towards Upper Darby.
Gotcha.
You want to turn to go towards the Manoa School on Manoa Road.
Okay,
And that crosswalk is more than 10 feet away from that Westchester Pike travel way.
yes,
So your
yes.
sign, is going to only be 10 foot back. So it's going to be between, if you're on Westchester Pike, is it going to block your vision of the upcoming crosswalk that you can't see yet until you turn the corner?
The sign will not be blocking that. It really truly won't. The sign's gonna be back further enough and away from that walkway by at least good 25 feet from the walkway.
It's 15 feet from the right-of-way. A lot of that grass area is in the right-of-way. It's not 15 feet from the curb. It's way more than that,
Yeah.
15 feet from the right-of-way.
Okay, but we don't know what the distance is from the travel lane of Westchester Pike, not the ramp, but the travel lane of Westchester Pike down to the crosswalk is. It's further than 15 feet.
Travel, coming down and
It-
around.
It's more like, can I
On this
approach
portion?
the witness for a second?
Sure.
That's part of the 25.
You see that this is 25 feet here, this is 25 feet right here. This is the curb for the turn lane. Westchester Pike is way out here. Now, the part where you turn off on would be like here. But you've got a considerable distance.
Here's the curb line. Curb line is shown on the A2.
That's the curb line for the turnoff, yeah, not for the
Exactly.
travel lane.
I'm not concerned, but you're coming down Westchester Pike at 55 mile an hour. You're looking ahead of you at the turnoff. You can't see the whole turnoff if there's a sign blocking you.
The sign's back here. You're out here. How can that sign block?
You're not over there. You're going to be, this is the turn lane.
Can
Oh,
we,
that's it. I got you.
This is the
can,
curb.
can we go off the record for a second? I'd like to speak. Mr. Petrosi, we had an off-the-record discussion, and while I believe that the board has a general understanding, do you think, since we are going to have the fifth member read the transcript and vote, that in advance of that vote, you could present one additional exhibit similar to A9, in which you could then superimpose where the sign would be so that they could also visualize that?
we'll try to do that for you.
Thank you.
Okay. That helps with the here and there. Thanks, Don.
I think that that's all we had to present, unless you have any questions for any of the witnesses. I would just move for the admission of the exhibits.
The only remaining question I had, I understand that you want a monument sign and everything. What's the purpose of having the name of the management company and the phone number, other than if someone has a problem? Because, usually if people have a problem, they'll call the township to complain.
Part of the reason is to have people not call the township. There could be a neighbor that says somebody's parking on my property. There could be a neighbor that said there's been an abandoned vehicle parked in your parking lot for 2 months, get it out. And, the management's not there every day, so they want to know that, or your grass isn't cut, or, those kinds of things. But Brian, come on, with the board's permission, this is one of the partners. Just go up for a minute, Brian.
Yes.
He's got a.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And your full name and the capacity in which you appear this evening, please? Go ahead, turn his mic around.
Brian, can you help address the issue of why you need the name of the management company and the telephone number? How you?
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, we're coming up with this off the cuff. To be truthful, we haven't thought about exactly what language would be there. I was going to say, there really isn't a reason to have the name of, 1010 ability. No one knows what that is. It's not going to add anything. Something more generic, management, property, management with the phone number, something more generic like that would probably be more appropriate than putting 1010. You're exactly correct about that, but we still would want to be able to, have people contact us issues. Another point that I wanted to just.
So Brian, what you're saying is maybe something like managed by with a phone number or something to that effect.
We may have to hire you to write the language for us. But yeah, something along those lines would probably be more appropriate than just something which no one really knows what that would be.
Any other questions? Jess? Ed? Any?
No.
Okay.
And just to points that were made before, the question as to size of the lettering and could it be made smaller. From what I understood, we relied on the sign company to tell us, how big the sign would need to be for cars, as you said, going 55 miles an hour down Westchester Pike. It's going to be difficult enough to, read the lettering as it is, and making it smaller, cars would either not be able to read it or would have to slow down, which could cause traffic hazards.
They shouldn't be going 50 on Westchester Pike.
Yeah.
He didn't read the speed limit, right, Ed? Anything else, Don? We don't have any other questions. Do you have any other witnesses?
No, we don't. And we'll try to get you that additional exhibit, and we would understand that you would expect to vote at the March 21st meeting, is it?
Correct. Well, I'm going to ask, I'm going to go through the litany and then leave the record open for the sole purpose of accepting that exhibit. So with that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify, anyone present that received regular mail, any other residents of Haverford Township. With that, we'll continue this case for the sole purpose of receiving the additional exhibit that will illustrate or overlay exactly where the sign will be in relation to the building. And if it were to scale, that would be great. And there may be questions that arise from the board as a result of that exhibit. I just don't know, so I would suggest that you guys come back. So with that, this case is continued.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don. All right, so.
We're gonna go off there.
Yes. We'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll resume the hearing of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, February 21st, 2019. With regard to case Z 18-17, Dennis and Anne Marie, wrong one. Z 19-2, John and Cassandra McLaughlin. Jessica, are you prepared to vote? Ed, are you prepared to vote?
Yes, I am.
Kenny, are you prepared to vote?
Yes, I am.
And so am I. Kenny, would you please take that decision?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would move to approve the requested relief with the following conditions. No storage underneath the deck, no roof above the deck, no utilities on the deck, completed within 1 year of approval and in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Jess?
Approved.
Ed?
I agree.
I concur as well. That application is approved with those conditions, 4-0. And we are adjourned.
Sure.